Okay. So as most of you know, I'm Mark Burch and I'm the Region 3 program specialist, and I kind of have the central area of the state up into Oklahoma City area. And like Carrie mentioned, any of us are more than welcome to answer your questions. So if you ever call the office and I'm your program specialist, but I'm not available, anyone will be welcome to answer any questions that you have. But again, just know that our primary goal is to support you. So here's the key points that I want to kind of cover. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some slides and just go through some information, but then we're actually going to go look at some of these documents to kind of put everything together. Point number one is we want you and your students to be successful. In our mind, if you guys aren't successful, we're not doing a good enough job preparing you and giving you the resources that you need to operate and manage a quality program. So when your 5-year evaluation's coming up, don't stress. The best advice I could give you, and we'll go look at this document in a minute, when you know your year's coming up, just be prepared for that, right? Know what documents and evidence that you need to be able to show us what you're doing in your program that will meet all those requirements, and we'll be in good shape. And we actually have a folder that I'll show you where you can actually go and upload items, and you don't have to wait, until a week or so before your evaluation. I know the way I operate, I get with my Region 3 teachers and I work with them at the start of the school year if their 5-year evaluation is coming up to ensure that they have everything they need to be ready for that. We're not trying to close your program. We need you people. What you do in the classroom is very important, and the end goal of preparing students, like Mrs. Gray said, for workforce or college or whatever avenue they're going to, we need your help, and we just want to be an advocate for you and an asset for you moving forward. Some of you, being new teachers in BMITE, you're going to be taking over programs that, this year's the 5-year evaluation, and you're going to have to go probably dig for some of this information. You may have to get with your administrators to see if there's folders or information that the previous teacher had that you can have access to try to meet the requirements of this evidence. And it's about continuous improvement, right? Like where you are today is not going to be where you are at the end of the year, and it's not going to be where you are in 5 years, right? We all have to take steps to get where we want to be. And it's always changing, right? It's evolving, technology changes, the things that we do change. And so we have to remain flexible, adaptable, to make sure that we are meeting all of the different requirements. And challenges you to grow. There's no doubt about that, right? But if it wasn't easy or if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it. But the good thing about teachers that I've learned is that your passion for what you do drives your work. Is some of it going to be tedious and monotonous? Yes, but that's just part of the game plan, unfortunately. But again, together we'll get through it. This allows us the opportunity to work with you, get to know you better, your program better, as well as your administration, right? We all have to be on the same page, turning the same wheel to ensure that the end result is the same. And then, of course, for you guys, it allows you to get to know us better, right? And the backgrounds that we have to better assist you. And I think that's one good thing about our team here at BMITE is all of us have a different background and set of skills that we can bring to help all of our teachers, right? So for me, I was in business and education for 15 years after I graduated in sales and marketing, went back and got my alt ed, taught business. And then from there, I've ended up here at Career Tech. And so, my experiences are going to be different than Kathy or Christy or Carrie. But together, we feel like we have a lot of knowledge that we can help be an asset to you. Okay, so the evaluation schedule. I know yesterday through the scavenger hunt, we had you guys go and pull that evaluation schedule. You likely may have also received it in the packet for your new teacher academy. So you guys know if you're on the schedule for this year. And in just a little bit, we're going to go look at the 5-year rotation schedule and where you can find that in case you want to plan ahead to be ready for your 5-year evaluation. You'll know where that's at. We talked yesterday on CTU, and we'll go back to that in a little bit, to where you can find sample documents and ideas of what you need to show as evidence based on the standard or quality indicator to make sure that you meet all the requirements within each of the standards. So what I'm going to do, I like to have mine be more engaging. So I'm going to kind of stop at the end of every slide. Does anyone have questions just in regards to the evaluation schedule or anything related to the evaluation to this point? If you do, just go ahead and go off mute and let me know. All righty. So here are the standards. Yeah, go ahead.
Does the schedule ever change? And if so, what would be a reason for that happening?
I don't believe that the schedule changes. And that might be something we have to ask Carrie. I don't know if she's on this call, but there would have to be an extenuating circumstance for that schedule to change, only because like those going this year, of course, will then basically be moved over from 5 years from now after this year. So that's a good question. I don't know of any reason of why it would change, but we can also ask Carrie about that one. So good question. So here are the standards, right? Standard 1, leadership and administration. Standard 2, instruction and training. Support services, measurement and analysis, personnel, operations. And then as you see there, Standard 7 does not apply to those of you in this session right now. That is for our technology centers. And so that standard is directly for them. So we won't even spend any time on system impact. And again, in a little bit, we'll break this down a little bit more to show you the items that are in each of those standards. Once again, CTU is going to be your one-stop shop for anything you need related to the evaluation. You've got the resources and sample documents. I will show you where you can go to access your folder to easily upload items based on standard. And then, of course, you have the Teacher Academy where you can go back and watch any of these videos or information that you might need. I apologize, I didn't realize that thing was over there. Okay, so preparing for the evaluation. You know, everyone does it a little bit differently, but I think the best advice that I would give you is some of the resources I show you here in a little bit, where it kind of walks you through what evidence you need for each standard. I would just use that. That way, when you're loading documents, you know exactly what we're looking for. Keep in mind that it's not always about quantity, right? We don't need 700 projects from your students. You know, 3 or 4 is fine. We don't need every single receipt that you've used, right? We have your 412 report for that, so we can see what you've purchased for your classroom. And then what we're looking for when we come out, we have a list of all these things that you've purchased for your classroom. Now we're checking to make sure they're still in the classroom, right? Of course, things do age out. You know, there's a depreciation process. So if it's been 5-7 years ago that you purchased something and it's no longer valid or it's put somewhere else, we just make note of that. One thing that we would also encourage you to do, just so you're aware of what we're going to be looking for when we come out, is I'll show you the actual template in a little bit of what we're doing when we come out. And so what a lot of instructors will do is a self-evaluation. Like if you're filling it out on yourself, are you meeting all the requirements? If so, why? If not, why? And so we'll go through that in just a little bit. I will show you where to upload documents and how to upload those documents. It's a very simple process. And then basically, once you are completed with uploading all of the evidence, just let your program specialist know. Because what I like to do, and I just want to speak for myself, but if you have things in there a couple of weeks before your visit, I actually go in and look at all of that before I ever come out. That way I know exactly what else we might need versus trying to sit down and go through all of it, you know, together. And I think it saves both of us a lot of time, and then it prevents us from having to dig for stuff later. Any questions on that?
Hey, Mark, can I make a suggestion in here? And this is from somebody
Absolutely,
who did
please do.
it before and told me last year. If you have a Google Drive, go ahead and set up your Google Drive with a 5-year evaluation folder and then put the subfolders in it for each of the areas of the evaluation. That way you can build kind of as you go through the year, you've got 10, 15 minutes here or there. You're not trying to cram it all in when the evaluation is due. When Mark says, I'm coming in 2 weeks, you don't have to try to cram everything in at the last minute. I was able to do that and then just kind of zip everything over into CTU and drop it for Kathy to look at last year.
Yeah, thank you, Krista. And that reminds me, so if you're on the schedule for this year, there's a date on there of what we have scheduled to come out to your school. If that is you, please look at that. And if that date doesn't work for some reason, because you have something scheduled, you have a guest speaker coming in, a number of different things could impact that date. We have a little wiggle room within that week or two to still get that done, but it needs to be within that same time frame unless there's an extenuating circumstance. So thank you again, Krista. Okay, so at the end of the day, what we're looking for is, were each of the standards met or not met, right? And so the quality indicators are listed under each standard, and then we mark them as met or not met. If you don't meet the QIs, then of course it's not met. Standards that are not met result in probationary status, and the length of that probationary status will be dependent on which standard it is, right? So for example, this is hypothetical. We come out and we learn that you've not been testing students at the end of instruction, right? There's no testing data. Well, that's not one we can fix in a month, because it may be several months before you have the opportunity to test again. And so that probationary period may be longer than the fact that, well, we don't have any evidence of your 412 reports, things we can get rather quickly, right? And this goes back to why I like to do all these double checks before I come out. That way, we're not worried about those small items. So basically, it is up to each of the program specialists to determine how long that probationary status will last. Don't be stressed out or alarmed if you have something not met. That doesn't mean your program's going to be closed immediately. It's just documentation on our end that flags me to keep working with the instructor to ensure that we have all the evidence that we need. And then, of course, when we're done completing the evaluation, that gets sent to you and your administration. And if there is any standard that's not met, there's notes on why it's not met. And here are the steps we need to take to move it from not met to met. Okay, we're going to skip that one for now. And I'm going to go over here. Before I start sharing some other information, are there any questions just in broad terms over the evaluation? Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I have up here, of course, is just the 5-year evaluation schedule. So as you can see, the school is listed, and then the dates that we have on our calendar right now, and these have been communicated with your site administration, so they know that this is the date that we have scheduled to come out to your school. And what I'll be doing is any of the teachers that I'm going to be evaluating, I'll be reaching out to you as soon as school starts, just to remind you about the evaluation and just some next steps and areas where I might be able to be an asset to you moving forward. Please know that it's okay to ask questions. There's no stupid questions. There's no dumb questions. Our goal is to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful. So I wanted to show you the actual evaluation schedule itself. And then here is the comprehensive 5-year on-site schedule. So as you can see here, 2021-22, these would be the schools that are on the sheet that I just showed you, right? But if you wanted to know if you're going to be next year, 2022-23, if there's an X, next to your school in that column, that's the year that your program is scheduled to be evaluated. So this allows you to look in advance to see when your evaluation is coming up. Now, the $1 million question is, where did you find that and how can I get it? No problem. So I'm in CTU. I went to BMITE teacher resources and then evaluations and program information. Okay. And once you open that, you've got this year's schedule, and then you've got the 5-year evaluation rotation schedule. So all of this stuff is in here. Excuse me. There's also some other important information that you might want in terms of templates, advisory committees, the actual standards themselves. And that's what I wanted to show you next. Any questions on how to get into CTU, how to find the resources, anything like that? Okay. So this is the actual evaluation form that we use when we come on site to evaluate your program. And I'm going to kind of pull this up at the same time just to give you an idea of what this looks like. So this document here breaks down what's under each of those standards, right? So standard 1, leadership and administration. It kind of gives you a synopsis of what documentation we're looking for. This document here breaks it down even further. So leadership support. Are you being supported by your administration, right? So for example, if you're attending fall leadership conference or state leadership conferences, and you have any sort of emails from your administration supporting that, that would qualify. That's just one example. If you look at this document, it will break it down even further about things that would qualify under leadership and administration. Now, some things just happen that you don't have to control, luckily. So number 2 on here says Career Tech Education Program Secondary Contract. Well, that's not something you would have anyway, right? But that is something that is shared with Miss Corey Gray, who was just on. And so we have this in a folder for your school already. So some of these items are provided by your administration. We're just checking the box that we have it. Any questions on standard 1 so far? Perfect. The other important one are those OCAS codes that Carrie talked about yesterday. We want to make sure for you that courses that you're teaching through Career Tech are coded as 8,000 level courses. Here's a tip that I would give you as you start your school year. Get with the person that puts all that information into your system and just double check that all of those courses are already coded as 8,000 level, so we don't have to go back and do it later. Okay, so standard 2, instruction and training. I'm not going to go through every single one of these because they're pretty much self-explanatory and you guys have access to these documents. But again, this document here on these bullet points are telling you the evidence that we're looking for to meet standard 2, right? You have a class schedule, you have a student handbook, you have a strategic plan, 3-year strategic plan of where you're going to be and things you're going to be doing, the learning management system that you use, the accommodations that you might be making in your classroom for those students that need that. Do they have an ICAP? We have to have an ICAP on every student, right? Which system are you using to move the needle on that? Are you using OK Career Guide? Does your school district use something different? You guys have control over what you're using. We're just looking for the end result that every student, we're looking for that 13th and 14th year on that. Another big one within that is BPA and DECA. Are your students, not just members, but are they active? Are you going to FLC? Do you have students that are going to state leadership conference? Did you have any that moved on to national leadership conference? And so We're just trying to make sure that they're active participants and you don't just have them as members to check the box. Any questions on standard 2? All righty. Standard 3, support services. This is where we're looking at enrollment, your program of study, which a lot of times can also be accomplished when you're using like OK Career Guide or another system that allows you to build that out for students. And then you've got the career development enhancement. And so, we're looking at your enrollment numbers. We're looking to make sure that, our goal is no more than 25 in a class. So hopefully you don't have, 40. And so that would be something that we'd have to work with administration on, making sure that we're closer to that 25 number than way up around 40. And believe it or not, we've had some in the past where you've got 40, 42 students in a class, and it makes it very difficult on the instructor and the students. And so, and then articulation, right? And I know that Carrie talked a little bit about this yesterday, but are you aligned at your high school level to where when they complete the courses at your high school, they can roll right into your local tech center, right? And so there's a hierarchy there versus you guys offering something completely different than what's at the tech center. We're looking for that alignment, basically. Again, if that alignment's off, it's not always something you can fix, right? In just a few days, it may be a year-long process to be able to try and help get that fixed. And then just some other areas of student recruitment. How are you getting people or students into BPA or DECA? Are you guys using social media? How is that handled? Do your officers do that? So if you're electing officers for BPA and DECA, a lot of times they manage that for you. So standard 3 doesn't have a lot of quality indicators in it, but they're all important, of course. Any questions on standard 3? Great. Okay, so standard 4 is all about the measurement, right? And some of these things are going to be completed just by you completing your reports. And I know from being in the classroom and having to do these reports, they're tedious and you always wonder why. Something that Carrie and Dr. Mack shared yesterday was the fact that these reports are important because this is how we validate when they go and want to increase the funding, right? They're trying to get more funds into your program. They're trying to increase your teacher stipend. These reports are very crucial in having those conversations to expand the needle on the funds that go to each of these programs. And so we are actually trying to come up with some creative ways to make this easier, especially for new teachers, whether that be through videos walking you through how to complete each of these reports. And this is why all of these are on your important dates document. So you know when the report is due and to get in there and get that completed. Again, none of them are really hard. It's just a matter of being able to sit down and complete those reports. And so that's really what standard 4 is all about. And then of course, the certification data or the testing data. Are you testing your students? What certifications are you using? Do those certifications align with the classes that you're teaching? So those are the variables that we're looking for there under standard 4. Standard 5 is really all about you. And so, you have your teaching certificate uploaded to that file. It shows us what you are qualified to teach. Any professional development that you guys are doing, you'd want to add it to that folder, which would also include the sessions that you would attend, like at Oklahoma Summit coming up here in just a couple of weeks. We're kind of changing that to make it easier, where when you attend a session, there'll be a QR code. And then once you're done, it can generate a report showing all of the sessions that you attended, right? So that's just one example. Your school may require you to attend a couple of professional development days throughout the year. Keep that documentation, whatever the topic was about. Those are things that you can upload to the folder to show evidence of this. And then of course, what is your professional learning network? All of us are different. Some of us use LinkedIn. Some of us are old school and just have a community of teachers that we meet with, kind of like your own little advisory group on, hey, I'm doing this in the classroom. What are your ideas? You might use the resources in CTU. So there's a wide range of things that can check the box on standard 5. You just need to be able to show evidence of how you're doing that. So okay, and then standard 6, operations. This is basically one of the biggest ones when I come out, is I'm looking at your classroom, right? I'm looking at how organized things are, the arrangement, size class again, the equipment that you're using, the software that you're using, the safety, right? Did you do the safety exam? That's all part of it. Do you have accommodations for any students that may have a disability? Evidence of your advisory committee. How many times are you meeting a year? A lot of times the best thing that teachers will upload here are your agenda for the advisory committee meetings, as well as those members that are on your advisory committee. And then industry involvement, right? Are you working with local industry partners on work-based learning? Do you have them coming in to be guest speakers? Are you taking any of your students on a tour of their facilities? Internships, apprenticeships, you name it, a lot of different things can fall into that bucket. And then once again, let's see if I've missed anything here. Yeah, so that's standard 6 in a nutshell. I'm surprised I remembered all that without looking at that slide, but I guess when you do it enough, you kind of just remember what's out there. So again, I would highly encourage you to, like Krista said, if you want to make your own Google Drive with these standards and start uploading stuff before you actually go into our system to start uploading it, that's a perfect way to do it. If not, I'm going to show you real quick on CTU. So once you're logged in, of course, you'll always go to BMITE. And then on 5-year evaluations. And before I do this, keep in mind what you're going to see on my screen is different than what you're going to see, because when you click on this, the only folder you're going to see is for your school for that school year. So as you can see, it's broken down by month. And all of these are hidden right now from everyone because with all the changes, we have to go in and update the folders based on who's the actual teacher now. But basically, you would see your folder, and I'm just going to click on this one. So as you can see, there's all these. You only have 6, right? Because 7 doesn't apply. Excuse me. But basically, you would be able to click on any of these folders to upload documentation. Let's see here. Okay, so I just switched my role to teacher so you could see what you would see. And so all you would do is click on the edit button. Now, here's the important part, because some people get confused and they just start uploading all of their documents right in this area. What you'll want to do is actually click on the standard that you are uploading documentation for. So if it's leadership and administration, I'm going to click here. And then all you have to do, you can either drag and drop your files, or of course you could add here and it would search your computer for the file that you wanted to upload. So pretty simple. You might get into a habit of making sure that your file is named, because a lot of times it just says, file 1, file 2. That makes it more difficult for us to understand what it is, at least looking at it at a glance. And so if you would do me a huge favor and label that file, whatever it's related to, like advisory committee or advisory committee agenda, things like that, that is very helpful to us, because as you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of documents uploaded for each of you. And so that makes it easy for me at a glance to look to see if there's anything missing first. And then I go in and actually start looking at all the documentation and then making notes on anything that we might need to revise, add, things like that. So with that, that is all of the actual material that I was going to show you in regards to the evaluation. And I can't stress enough, try to prevent from feeling stressed or having a lot of anxiety over it, because we're here to help and we're going to start helping you long before everything is due. So Chris, I see your hands up. Do you have a question?
Basically, I wanted to offer a tip that can be taken or left. The eval form that you were going through, it's broke up into 6 sections, and then it's got the different rows in it that are numbered 1, 2, 3, etc. She had mentioned, and you had supported the idea of having like a Google Drive folder that you save the documentation in all year. I'm an accountant. It's an old accountant, tendency to do stuff like this, but to make it easy, so I knew what documentation corresponded with what part of the evaluation. So if it's that section 1, right, I did a 1, and then if it was like the 3rd standard on there, I did .3. So it'd be 1.3 and then the name of whatever the file is, to show that that supporting documentation